$850,000, the amount I transferred to my parents over 12 years. When I asked for $3,000 for my son's surgery, Dad said, "Your sister has 3 kids. She needs it more." I hung up. That evening I sent them an Excel file with every transfer. Dad opened it, scrolled down, and fell off his chair. Mom grabbed the phone, but I'd already changed everything. It was 6:41 p.m. in my parents' dining room in Scottsdale, the kind of room designed to look expensive without ever being warm. The chandelier was on even though the sun hadn't fully set. The table runner was perfectly ironed. My mother's place settings were spaced like a magazine photo. My dad's steak knife was aligned with the edge of the plate like he was measuring it for a contract. I stood near the doorway with my phone pressed to my ear, watching my son, Leo, sit in the living room with his iPad balanced on his knees and a blanket pulled up to his chin. He looked small, too small for what the doctor had said that morning. "Max," my dad said into the phone, his voice already tired of me. "I told you. We're tapped out." My throat tightened anyway. "It's 3,000, I said. "That's it. The surgery deposit. They won't schedule him without it." I kept my tone even because that's what I did in this family. I stayed even. I stayed useful. I stayed quiet. There was a pause, and I could picture him sitting at the head of their table, elbow on the wood, doing that thing where he rubbed his temple like I was giving him a headache. Then he said it. "Your sister has 3 kids, he said. "She needs it more." For a second, I didn't hear the words as words. I heard them as a door closing. I stared at the wall where my mother had framed a family photo from last Christmas. My parents, my sister, her husband, their 3 kids in matching sweaters. And me, off to the side, half cut off by the frame like an afterthought. "You're seriously saying no?" I said. My dad exhaled like I was making him be the bad guy. "Max," he said, low and firm. "Don't make this a thing." I swallowed. I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to yell. I didn't want to beg. I just wanted my son scheduled for surgery. I tried one more time. "I've sent you money for years," I said. "This isn't a vacation. This is..." "Enough," he cut in. "We do what we can. And right now, we're helping your sister." End of discussion. In the background, I heard my mom's voice, faint and sweet, like she was narrating a cooking show. "Tell him we love him." My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't rise. I said, "Okay." And I hung up. My name is Max. I was 38 at the time, and I designed landscapes for people who owned things I would never even think to buy. Private courtyards behind iron gates. Rooftop gardens with imported olive trees. Backyard oases where the water ran quieter than most people's thoughts. I built beauty for a living. But in my family, I'd always been the one who didn't need much. That was their favorite story about me. I stood in the doorway, staring at that framed photo, and felt something shift. Not rage. Clarity. That was the moment I stopped waiting for fairness. That was the moment I started planning. If you asked my parents, they'd tell you I had a good childhood. No abuse. No addictions. No screaming fights in the front yard. Just a steady, polished kind of imbalance. My sister, Alina, was 2 years younger than me. She was the kind of pretty that made strangers smile at her. The kind of charming that turned mistakes into learning moments. When she cried, the whole house moved. When I succeeded, it was expected. When I failed, it was a character lesson. I was the easy kid. My mom used to say it like a compliment. Max was always so independent. She'd say at family gatherings, laughing softly. He didn't need the drama. Translation. I learned early that asking for things made me inconvenient. I can still picture the first time I understood the rules. I was 12. Alina was 10. Dad came home with 2 boxes from an electronics store. I watched him set them on the counter like gifts from a different universe. Alina ripped hers open first. A brand new laptop. Shiny. Silver. Her name already written on the inside flap in black marker. My box was smaller. I opened it carefully, trying to match her excitement. Inside was a calculator. Not even a graphing one. Just a plain calculator and a pack of pencils. Dad smiled like he'd nailed it. "You like numbers," he said. "This is practical." Alina squealed and hugged him like he'd given her a piece of the moon. When I stared a little too long, my mom leaned down and whispered with that gentle warning tone. "Be grateful," she said. "You don't want to grow up entitled." Years later, when it was time for college, my sister got a fund. I got a speech. We sat at the kitchen table. My acceptance letter was in my hands. The paper smelled like fresh ink and hope. Dad skimmed it, nodded once, and pushed it back to me. "You'll figure it out," he said. You always do. I waited for the next sentence. It never came. Alina's tuition was paid. Apartment deposit handled. Meal plan loaded up like a gift card. When I asked how I was supposed to pay, Dad shrugged. Loans, he said. Scholarships. Work. You're resourceful. My mom added the line she always used, the one that made favoritism sound like parenting philosophy. You're so independent, she said. You don't need help like she does. She said it like she was proud of me. But the truth was simpler. They didn't help because they didn't have to. I worked. I studied. I learned how to sell my time. I took internships I couldn't afford. I lived with roommates who left dishes in the sink and never bought toilet paper. I didn't complain. I built. After college, I found landscaping the way some people find religion, by accident, and then suddenly it was everything. I had a talent for turning dead space into living space. I could look at a blank yard and see lines, shadows, movement. My first big client was a local developer's wife who wanted her backyard to feel like a boutique hotel. I made her a desert garden with soft lighting and a water feature that sounded like a whisper. She showed her friends. Her friends showed their friends. Soon I was designing for people who tipped in cash like it was normal. And that's when the money started. Not my money. Their requests. At first, it was small. Dad called when the car needed repairs. It's just a quick thing, he said. Can you spot us? I did. Mom called when the roof needed work. We'll pay you back, she said, like it was a real plan. They didn't. Then it became a rhythm. A transfer here. A transfer there. Help with property taxes. Cover the insurance. Just until next month. And I did it because I had been trained to be the stable one. The reliable one. The one who kept the machine running. When I got married and later divorced, they didn't ask how I was doing, but they noticed the day my income jumped again. Max, my mom said once, almost laughing, you're doing so well. We're proud. And then, in the same breath, do you think you could help Alina with daycare? It's just temporary. Temporary became 12 years. I paid for their vacations without being invited. I paid for my sister's emergencies that were always somehow urgent and always somehow expensive. I paid so often that my bank app suggested their account as a frequent recipient. I told myself it was family. I told myself I was fortunate. I told myself I didn't want to keep score. But the score kept itself. The moment that should have snapped me earlier was my own son's birth. Leo came early. NICU. Machines. Plastic tubes. That smell of sanitizer and fear. My hands were shaking when I texted my parents the news. Mom replied with a heart emoji. Dad wrote, keep us posted. Alina called, crying loudly, because the same week her husband lost his job. 2 days later, my dad asked if I could cover their mortgage just for a month. I said yes, because that's what I did. I said yes until yes became my identity. Over the years, I watched my parents treat Alina like a fragile vase and treat me like a toolbox. If I was tired, they called it moodiness. If I said no, they called it selfish. If Alina cried, they called it stress. If she asked for money, they called it support. They weren't villains. That's the part people don't understand. They were worse. They were consistent. So when my dad said, your sister has 3 kids, she needs it more, it didn't come out of nowhere. It was the purest version of the family logic I'd been swallowing since I was 12. Only now it wasn't about a laptop or tuition or a car. It was about my child. And something in me finally refused to bend. The next day, my phone buzzed before breakfast. Mom. I let it ring. Then a text. Honey, please call. We didn't mean it like that. I stared at it while Leo ate cereal at the counter, swinging his legs, humming softly because humming helped him stay calm when he was nervous. I typed. It was clear exactly what you meant. Then deleted it. I didn't want a debate. I didn't want a messy conversation where they'd twist everything into miscommunication. I wanted distance. 2 hours later, Alina posted an Instagram story. A shot of her 3 kids in matching pajamas, sticky smiles, pancakes in front of them. Caption. Blessed. Family is everything. I watched it without reacting. No anger. Just that quiet, cold inventory happening in my head. That night, my dad called again. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. Max, stop acting like a teenager. Call your mother. You're making this bigger than it is. Making it bigger than it is. My son needed surgery, and my dad called it drama. I listened to the voicemail twice. Not because I needed to hear it again. Because I wanted it recorded in my memory exactly as it was. I spent the next 2 days moving through my life like I was underwater. Client meetings. Site visits. designs on my iPad, stone samples, plant palettes, lighting plans. Everything looked normal from the outside, but inside, my brain was reorganizing the story of my family in real time. Because once you stop excusing people, everything becomes clearer. Every time they said, "You're independent," it wasn't admiration. It was permission. Permission to use me. Permission to ignore me. Permission to keep taking because I wouldn't make noise. On the third day, my mom showed up at my house. No warning. I opened the door and saw her standing on my porch with a smile too bright for the situation. She held a grocery bag like it was a peace offering. "Hi, sweetheart," she said. "I brought soup. And those rolls Leo likes." Leo peeked around my leg. His eyes went cautious the moment he saw her. He remembered. Kids always remember. I didn't invite her in. Her smile flickered. "Max," she said softly. "Can we talk?" "Not today," I said. Her eyes widened like I'd slapped her. "What do you mean not today? You can't just shut us out." I looked at her bag. The plastic crinkled in the breeze. "Mom," I said, still calm. "You shut us out first." Her mouth opened, then closed. She tried a different angle. "Your father was under stress." I nodded once. "So was I said. She stepped closer, lowering her voice like we were discussing a secret. "Alina's been struggling," she said. 3 kids is a lot. You know that." I stared at her. I thought about my son's medical paperwork sitting on my kitchen table. "Leo is struggling," I said. "And you know that too." Her face tightened. Then she said the line that finally did it. The line that flipped the last switch. "You're being cold," she said. "This isn't you." I felt something go still in me. Because it was me. It was the version of me that existed before I learned to soften everything so they could stay comfortable. "I'm not cold," I said. "I'm clear." She blinked. I opened the door wider just enough to let her see the hallway. "We're fine," I said. "We'll handle it." She looked past me, trying to see Leo. "Tell him Grandma loves him." I didn't move. "I will," I said. She waited for me to crumble. I didn't. After a long moment, she turned and walked back to her car, carrying the soup like it was suddenly heavy. That night, after Leo fell asleep, I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. I didn't cry. I didn't drink. I didn't draft a long emotional message. I opened my banking history, and I started pulling receipts. Not because I wanted revenge, because I wanted reality on my side. My work taught me something most people didn't realize. Landscaping at the VIP level wasn't just plants and stone. It was control. It was paperwork. It was timing. Clients didn't pay you 6 figures because you knew which palm trees looked expensive. They paid because you handled chaos without showing it. You kept track of every detail. You documented. You planned. You anticipated the moment something would break, and you built around it. So I treated my family like a high-end project that had been mismanaged for years. First, I built a spreadsheet. Date, amount, notes, recipient, bank reference, every transfer I'd ever sent. 12 years. Some were labeled tax help, some mortgage, some Alina school. Some were just blank because I hadn't even needed a reason anymore. They just asked. I sent. As I filled the rows, something strange happened. I stopped feeling confused. Confusion came from the idea that maybe I was wrong. Numbers don't do that. Numbers don't distort reality. The total at the bottom wasn't a punchline. It was a monument. $850,000. I stared at it in the corner of the sheet, black text on white background, and felt my stomach go hollow. Then I made a second tab. Comparison. How much I'd sent in total. How much they'd sent back. The answer was almost insulting. A few holiday checks. A birthday card with $100 once. A single transfer for $250 labeled, "Thanks," after I replaced their water heater. That was it. Third tab. Purpose versus reality. Because I wasn't guessing anymore. I was done guessing. I pulled property records. I pulled loan statements. I pulled the insurance policies they'd asked me to pay for. I pulled the timeline of my sister's emergencies. Everything lined up like it had been waiting for me to look. My money didn't just support them. It freed their money. And their freed money went to Alina. A minivan upgrade. A kitchen renovation. A family vacation to Maui that I wasn't invited to. A down payment assistance gift they bragged about to relatives. I didn't scream. I didn't slam my laptop shut. I saved it. Then I called 2 people. First, my son's hospital billing office. I paid the deposit myself. I moved things around. I sold a set of outdoor lighting fixtures I'd been stockpiling for a client installation. I took on an extra job I'd been delaying. Leo got scheduled. Second, I called my attorney. Not a dramatic lawsuit attorney. A calm, document-focused one. The kind who spoke in bullet points and didn't get emotional about other people's emotions. He listened while I explained the transfers. He asked, "Were any of them documented as loans?" I said no. He paused, then said, "But you have records." "I have everything," I said. He told me something simple. "You can't force them to become good people," he said, "but you can stop funding the bad behavior." So I did what I should have done years earlier. I changed my automatic transfers. All of them. Canceled. I changed beneficiaries on my accounts. I changed my emergency contacts. I updated my will. Not out of spite. Out of responsibility. Leo wasn't going to inherit my family's dysfunction. He was going to inherit protection. I opened a custodial account for him and set it up so it could only be accessed for his education and health expenses. Then I drafted an email. Not an emotional one. A clean one. Subject line, financial summary and future boundaries. Attached, the Excel file. And a short message underneath. This is every transfer I've made to you since 2013. I asked once for help for Leo's surgery. You refused. Effective immediately, I will no longer be providing financial support. Please do not contact me by phone. If you need to communicate, do it by email. No insults. No name calling. No room for debate. I sent it at 9:17 p.m. Then I turned my phone off and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up to 12 missed calls and 3 voicemails. I didn't listen yet. I made Leo pancakes. He ate slowly because his stomach had been weird for weeks. I watched him chew like it was the most important thing in the world. Because it was. My dad opened the Excel file at 10:06 a.m. I know because my mom later screamed the time at me like it mattered. He called it, that ridiculous spreadsheet. Like facts were a tantrum. He was at his desk in their home office, the one he always treated like a command center. My mom was apparently in the kitchen. Alina was at their house too, because she was always there when money was in the air. Dad clicked the attachment. He saw the first row, then the second, then the 100th. He scrolled like he was watching someone else's life happen. And then he reached the bottom. $850,000. The part that made him fall off his chair wasn't just the number. It was the next line under it. Because I'd added one more tab. Projected loss. It listed every monthly support transfer I'd been making automatically that they'd stopped noticing. Mortgage supplement. Insurance. Alina's daycare. Utilities. Random help that had become a permanent budget line in their lives. Total monthly support. $5,900. Projected annual loss. $70,800. And I'd highlighted a final sentence in yellow. This ends today. That's when my dad lost his balance. He actually fell off his chair. Not in a slapstick way. In a reality way. A man realizing the ground under him had been funded by someone he treated as optional. My mom grabbed the phone. She called me so fast she didn't even leave a voicemail first. She called again and again, but I'd already blocked their numbers. Because I'd already done the part they never expected. I'd made access a privilege, not a guarantee. They switched tactics. Emails came next. My mom's first email was pure performance. "Max, please. We are family. We love Leo. Your father didn't mean it like that. Alina is in tears. Call us so we can talk like adults." I stared at it for a long moment. Then I forwarded it to my attorney. My dad's email was shorter. "You're being disrespectful. After everything we've done for you. Everything we've done for you." I almost laughed. Instead, I replied with one sentence. "Please refer to the attached spreadsheet." No emojis. No warmth. No softness. Just reality. Then Alina emailed. Not about Leo. Not about the surgery. About herself. "So you're really doing this? You know Mom and Dad can't afford to lose your help. You're punishing my kids." I read that one twice, too. And I realized something important. They didn't see my money as my money. They saw it as a family resource. A faucet they controlled with guilt. I didn't respond. 2 days later, there was a family dinner. Not at my parents' house. At my aunt's. Aunt Marina was the only person in my extended family who had ever looked at me like I was a whole person. She was my mom's older sister. The blunt one. The one who didn't smile through disrespect. She invited me quietly. "I want you here," she said. "Not for drama. For truth." So I went. I walked in with Leo holding my hand, wearing his little jacket zipped up to his chin. The room smelled like roasted garlic and lemon. The table was crowded with bowls and plates, and people pretending they didn't feel the tension. My parents were already there. My dad looked smaller than usual, like someone had turned down his volume. My mom's eyes were red, but her lipstick was perfect. Alina sat with her arms folded, chin high, like she was waiting to be wronged again. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make a scene. I waited until everyone had sat down and the first round of polite small talk died. Then my dad cleared his throat. "Max," he said, forcing calm. "We need to discuss this like a family." I set my napkin on my lap. "Smooth. Careful." "No," I said. "You need to accept it like a family." My mom's breath hitched. My dad's jaw tightened. He tried again. "You can't just cut us off because of one misunderstanding." I looked at him, really looked at him, then said, "It wasn't one misunderstanding. It was 12 years. He opened his mouth, but I didn't let him fill the space with excuses. I reached into my bag and pulled out a single printed page. Not the whole spreadsheet, just the summary page. $850,000. $0 repaid. Monthly support, $5,900. End date. Already happened. I slid it across the table. Aunt Marina leaned forward and read it. Her face changed. Not into shock. Into anger. The quiet kind. The kind that doesn't waste itself on yelling. She looked at my mom. "You took this from him?" she asked. My mom's hands fluttered toward her chest. "It wasn't like that," she said. "We're his parents." Aunt Marina cut her off. "You're not his bank," she said. The room went still. My dad's hand trembled slightly as he touched the paper, like it was hot. Alina spoke, voice sharp. "So what? You're just abandoning us." I turned to her, calm. "I'm not abandoning you," I said. "I'm declining to be used." My dad finally snapped, but it wasn't loud. It was desperate. "How could you do this to us?" he hissed. "After all we've done for you." I didn't argue the point. I didn't list my childhood. I didn't bring up the college fund. I didn't need to. I just said the truth that mattered now. "My son needed surgery," I said. "I asked for $3,000. You said no." My mom flinched. I stood up slowly, because I wasn't there to win a debate. I was there to set a new reality. "I'm not asking," I said. "I'm informing you." Leo squeezed my hand. I looked down at him and smiled, small and real. "We're going home," I told him. And we left. No slammed doors. No tears in the driveway. Just the clean sound of my keys in my hand and my son's footsteps beside mine. Relief doesn't always feel like happiness. Sometimes it just feels like air returning to your lungs. 3 months later, Leo had his surgery. He slept in a hospital bed with cartoon stickers on the side rails. His face was pale, but peaceful. When he woke up, he asked for apple juice and told me the nurse had cool shoes. I sat beside him and held his hand and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Safety. My parents didn't come. They didn't ask to. They sent one email 2 days before the procedure. "We hope everything goes well." No apology. No accountability. Just a sentence designed to make them look reasonable if anyone ever asked. I didn't reply. Life got quieter after that. Not empty. Cleaner. I still designed gardens for people who didn't know my last name and didn't need to. I still drove past gated communities and handed over plans and watched my work turn into something beautiful. But when I came home, it was mine. No calls asking for just a little help. No guilt disguised as love. No family group chat pretending everything was fine while I paid the bills behind the scenes. One Sunday morning, I made Leo pancakes again. He sat at the counter in his socks, swinging his legs, humming softly. I checked my phone and saw a new email from my mom. Subject line, "Can we talk?" The body was short. "We miss you. We want to fix this." I stared at it for a long time. Then I closed my phone. Not because I was angry, because I finally understood the difference between missing me and missing what I provided. I poured syrup on Leo's pancakes and sat down across from him. He looked up and smiled, sleepy and safe. And I realized something simple. At the beginning of this story, there was an empty seat in my family. A place where support should have been. Now there wasn't. Because I'd built a new table. And this time, the people sitting at it actually cared if we ate. I'm on Max's side because he didn't get revenge. He did something harder. He stopped participating in a system that relied on his silence. The most powerful part of this story isn't the spreadsheet or the total amount. It's the moment he refused to beg for help for his child from people who saw his son as less important than his sister's convenience. Quiet boundaries don't look dramatic, but they change everything. What would you have done in his place?